Yaelokre have always felt unique and fascinating to me, but what especially drew me in was just how deep the lore of this world is. This time we won't just be analyzing the songs, we'll be fully diving into the story of this world and finishing the prologue chapter Foreword. So let's not waste any time, get ready, because today we are diving into this chapter's finale of this mysterious world of Yaelokre. Like I said, today we are going to properly break down the lore of this world, so I think it's only right to start this video with the group that introduced us to it in the first place. And to begin the lore from the very start, how did the Lark come together? It all started with Cole and Kingsley. They've known each other since childhood, and even though their personalities were complete opposites, that actually made them complement each other really well. Cole is pretty shy, while Kingsley is the exact opposite, so they were always the one pulling Cole into all kinds of activities and encouraging them to open up and just have fun. The same thing happened with Peregrine when Cole and Kingsley met them, since Peregrine was fairly closed off because of the environment they grew up in. Kingsley encouraged them to simply be a child, while Cole encouraged them to open up about their feelings, and eventually it worked. Clementine was the last one. In a way, they were the opposite of Peregrine, because while Peregrine started out very reserved, Clementine instead loved absolutely everything and everyone, but didn't really understand much else, so the others had to teach Clem how life works and how to behave in it, while Clem taught others how to love. And here I think we should focus a bit more on this idea. How do the Lark complement each other? After all, I did promise we will talk about that. Each of the Lark members brings something unique into the group, almost stabilizing and completing it. For example, if you took Kingsley away, the others would worry way too much, or if you removed Cole and Peregrine instead, the group would become completely unhinged. Kingsley! Because while Kingsley and Clemmy bring lightness to the group, Cole and Peregrine bring stability. This sense of balance is also reflected in just how opposite they can be from one another. Honestly, I could list these differences forever, like how Peregrine is generally more reserved while Kingsley and Clem are much more open, or even something more simple, like how Peregrine is the oldest while Kingsley is the youngest in the group. But most importantly, these differences never become reasons for conflict or anything like that. Quite the opposite. For example, despite the age gap, Peregrine never talks down to Kingsley, and Kingsley never looks at Peregrine with assumptions, always allowing them to be vulnerable and emotional. The Lark are also united by their love for history and philosophy. They know a lot about Eld and are always ready to talk about it, though when some random passerby starts telling them false facts about history and the Storyteller, even if the Lark realize they are being fed complete nonsense and want to put their 2 cents, they probably won't correct them right away, either because someone will be too shy to do it, I'm looking at you, Cole, or because, as Peregrine would say, it's not worth it. Speaking of those random passerby, we somehow never really talked about Felicity, the town where the Lark and the others currently live. None of the Lark members had lived there since childhood. From what I understand, they all came from different places. Though whether they arrived there on their own or someone brought them there, that's something I'd really like to know. The town is named after the Majesty's late wife, whose name was, well, Felicity. Basically, the town is a mix of many different things that Keith personally likes. Felicity also has 4 bridges, though they are almost always raised for safety reasons and to show that the Harkers are unwelcome here. Yeah, the propaganda of the Majesty's beliefs still hasn't left this town, even after centuries. The city was created as the Majesty's baby, so many people still follow what he preached, which is why very few people there believe in the Harkers. Though throughout Eld in general, people like that are considered foolish who still cling to the Majesty's beliefs. He did a lot of bad things, though surprisingly, like I mentioned earlier, that still doesn't stop some people. And in Felicity, this is exactly what makes the Lark so unique. They believe in the Harkers, just like the playwright Cooper and the people close to them. And the Lark doesn't even try to think otherwise, because how can you not believe in something you've seen with your own eyes? These kids actually know more than most of the world, and even the playwright who believes and knows about most of the things they talk about still has moments of doubt sometimes. After all, they are just children. Can the playwright believe them so easily? They want to believe. What makes the Lark even more unique, not just in Felicity but across the entire world of Eld, is that they were chosen by the Harkers. What, did you think the Lark just admired them for no reason? It goes deeper than it seems. But then again, why will the Harkers do that? And what was their goal? We'll come back to that later, so let's discuss something else for now. As I mentioned earlier, the Majesty didn't exactly like the Harkers. Why? What did they do to him? Once, a long time ago, during the reign of the Majesty, and yes, I'm using this Harpy here chair to represent him, please do not ask any questions, each of the Harkers came to him. The Storyteller came with the word of history. He did not heed. The Bell-ringer appeared hoping to persuade his tomorrow. He refused to follow. Then Enkindled invited him to a dance, intending for his doubts winning against him. You can already guess how that ended. And so came the Croon, but because of his indifference, which could affect the lives of many, the Majesty covered his ears, as his reason was as much a burden as the consequences. He did not listen to the Harkers, resulting in having to face the Four Cradles. Oh, finally these figures are appearing in my videos. It only took like a year and a half of waiting. Actually, they've been there from the very beginning, but there was just way too little information about them before, which is why I didn't talk about them earlier, but that's more related to the past anyway. Well, there aren't many new details about them just yet, but at least now we have one interesting story that can clarify things a bit. The origin story of Lark, in which these figures also appear. At first, there was something unknown and invisible to this world, until the Lark, driven by the wish to heed, set out in search of a tale to sing its song. It witnessed dances and melodies carrying the power of a witness and transforming those stories into tales. The Lark brought fables to field that mirrored its golden heart. It was then they rose with the sun, the mother trees appeared, the Four Cradles. Each of them gave birth to a wandering tale-teller, and together they were called the Harkers. Yes, the Four Cradles are actually the ones who created the Harkers. They also inspired a group of children very familiar to you, known as the Lark. Having heard of the warble's promises, they swore to nurture its melody, fostering a strain of magic called wonderment, the very same area that brought them into existence. So yeah, this part we've discussed. Like I said, we still have very little information about the Four Cradles for now, so let's return to the Majesty. When he ignored the warnings of the Harkers, the Four Cradles arrived. The humming ceased as the crows bellowed over his kingdom, his people, his sheep. And that, in theory, is how the Majesty's kingdom fell apart. And the tale about him is what the public knew from the witnesses. Over the years, many things changed, including the story itself, which eventually became the tale of the Harpy, the Hare and the Hound. Reduced to a tale told to children, a story meant to warn them of the dangers so they won't disobey, but mostly a rhyme chanted in the form of a clapping game. Yeah, the very same Harpy Hare, where have you buried all your children? Tell me so I say. Clementine actually explained this game in more detail before, so if you want to learn more about it, I'll leave a link to the original in the description. But what's interesting is that even the storyteller, who is incapable of telling a lie, had their words misshapen about the original version of this tale. Are they trying to hide something? Yeah, honestly, who knows. Even if the situation raises some questions, the Storyteller was created simply to tell stories. They are not hiding something evil or dark from us. In general, all four Harkers essentially just do their own thing without personal motives, and they don't do things purely to gain something from them. And actually, the interpretation of these characters mostly is left up to us, the audience. The same goes for the people of Eld. There are all sorts of rumors about the Harkers in this world. For example, people say that the Storyteller and the Bell-ringer might have something going on between them. Once, Story and Yarrow met in a small town. They danced and serenaded to one another like birds trying to impress each other. In honor of this, a holiday called Bellstrom appeared in Eld. It was created to celebrate the present, since the past and future, the things these two Harkers represent, are connected. Their job involves visiting towns to sing and warn people, and outside of their job, they may or may not have a relationship. So the marriage that a lot of people in the old era of the fandom believed in could be real Or maybe not. I'm saying this now as if I wasn't the one confidently claiming that they were married in my first video, lol. People also say that the Bell-ringer and the Enkindled met a few times over minor matters. There is suspicion that they help each other, though for what reason and why exactly, that's still unknown. And now, since we are still talking about the Harkers, I think it's time to mention Hayfields EP. If you are wondering why I suddenly decided to bring it up again, first of all, it directly relates to the Harkers, as I said, since its songs serve as preludes to each of the four of them. And secondly, we now actually have an official explanation from Yaelokre themselves about what each of these songs mean. And not only that, but also which song corresponds to which Harker. Those who watched my first video probably remember my thoughts on this topic, and guess who got every single Harker right? Yep, not pointing fingers of course, but... Okay, I'll stop yapping and dragging this out. I think you'll be much more interested in hearing what these songs actually mean. Hartebeest is a song that tells countless stories from the wild, stories that exist beyond cities overflowing with people. A bird watching life unfold, a wild cat hunting, Hartebeest trying to cross a river filled with crocodiles and alligators. This song tries to tell us a story about consequences and different perspectives. We may feel bad for the rabbits being haunted by the wild cat, but the cat itself could be a mother simply trying to feed her children. That's why the Storyteller is associated with Hartebeest, through the nature of storytelling itself. Harpy Hare is Yarrow the Bell-ringer, though Yaelokre decided not to share why exactly it's them, so it seems that the interpretation of the song is still mostly left up to us. But aside from that, we now also know that lines like forest walls and starry ceiling, barren curtains that you weave in may also relate to Anais. The line wasn't specifically written for her, it just fits her incredibly well. Anais created many things, she is a crafter like her father, and the forest walls line is a reference to how Clementine's house was drawn. The walls have so many stories in them that they are seen as forests. I already talked about this in more detail in this video, so I won't focus on it too much this time. And the Hound represents the Enkindled. It's the story of the Harpy, the Hare and the Hound. After the Storyteller and the Bell-ringer tried to convince the Majesty and he refused to listen, the Enkindled arrived and began imitating the Majesty's thoughts, or maybe even entered his mind entirely, speaking as if he were listening to himself. And the Hound already captures this idea really well, but personally I think And the Hound Reprise conveys it even better from the Majesty's own perspective, with him calling himself and his actions a mistake. And Neath the Girl with a Heart represents the Croon. This song is a mix of all the previous Hayfields songs, almost like a combination of everything, which is exactly what the Croon is too, a mixture of bones from different animals. It's chaos, it's entropy, and just like Neath the Girl with a Heart, it's an attempt to organize all that mess into harmony. So yeah, that's about it. I'm really glad we finally know the meanings behind these songs, though if I'm being honest, it's a little sad that some of the mystery and magic surrounding this EP might disappear because of it. No, in the end, I think it's better this way. So, I've talked about Felicity, the Harkers, the Majesty and the Four Cradles. Now there's only one last promise left that I made you back in the previous video. Kingsley. What kind of character are they that they basically needed an entire separate video dedicated to them? Well, let's finally talk about that. To begin with, for me their origin were always the hardest to understand. It's like there's almost nothing to work with in their story. And trust me, I tried through the songs, through their short description on the Yaelokre website, and that's when I came up with my first theory, the one that honestly I feel is probably the most accurate. Basically, one of the very first things we learn about this world as a whole, at least when visiting the official website, is that it hopes of honor and wonderment, a magic lost to us who have grown, and a promise made to the child we once were. And to me, Kingsley embodies that idea better than anyone else. Even Kamahalan feels like it revolves around that theme, especially with lines like "Child, don't be scared, shout and dance goat wheel around, a waiter beckon or forgets, you are the Majesty." Kingsley Kingsley's description reflects this too, with phrases like many forget, miscomprehend and belittle the root of it all. Like I said, Kingsley is like the embodiment of that line from the middle arc's description, and that's kind of supposed to be their whole thing. They represent children, our childhood, and encourage us to not lose that sense of wonder. I mean, lol, in a way, Yaelokre practically said it themselves. I am talking about an old post explaining the meanings behind Lark's eye colors, where Kingsley specifically represents the childhood and confidence that Yaelokre lost or choose to tame. So, yeah, that's probably the theory I believe in the most, because honestly, otherwise I have no idea how I would even begin piecing together their origin. Based on everything we currently know, it's basically Kingsley and Cole grew up on the hills, bam, now they are suddenly in Felicity dancing and singing with the other Lark members, while Kamahalan and their description barely tell us anything about their life. But I still didn't want to stop there, even though that first theory makes a lot of sense and honestly it's a beautiful idea on its own. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper hidden beneath it. People who are part of the Yaelokre fandom have probably heard the theory more than once, that Kingsley is connected to the Majesty. Personally, at first, I didn't completely believe it. Like, okay, I saw why people thought that, but I still figured that Kingsley being obsessed with royal stuff didn't necessarily mean they were connected to the Majesty. But the more I thought about it, the more I found myself going like, wait, maybe this actually does make sense. Like, for example, the fact that Kingsley grew up on the hills alongside Cole, right where the Majesty's kingdom once stood. Or the fact that Kingsley actually doesn't have a last name, which is pretty unusual in this world, considering all the other Lark members do have one. Also, let's go back to Kingsley's description. Their origin aren't all theirs. Many forget, miscomprehend and belittle the root of it all. I already said that this phrase could be about not forgetting what it means to be a child, but what if it also means something else? The Harpy, the Hare and the Hound. A tale that originally tells the story of the Majesty, but over the years that story has lost its original meaning. Most people no longer remember the real story, and now they treat it as nothing more than just a clapping game. Do you notice some kind of connection here? The next line in Kingsley's description is even more interesting: to rule over what is rightfully yours, which only adds more points to what I'm about to say next. What if Kingsley is the Majesty? Okay, pause. Not literally. I do not think Kingsley is literally the Majesty or his reincarnation or something. This world may be magical sometimes, but not that magical. My theory is more that Kingsley could end up repeating the Majesty's fate. Let me explain what I mean. From what we currently know about the Majesty, he isn't exactly portrayed as a mature character. The people of Eld sometimes describe him as a careless child, and the Hound portrays him as a lost little boy who has lost his heart. And the very fact that at a time when danger threatened his kingdom and his people needed him, he covered his ears and refused to listen to the warnings. A whole Majesty who was entrusted with an entire kingdom, yet wasn't ready to act like an adult when it was time to take responsibility. But if we continue with the idea that Kingsley is following in the Majesty's footsteps, then another question comes up. What would actually make them different? Think back to the very beginning of this video. I'm pretty sure you still remember me talking about how the Lark complement one another. That is the biggest difference between Kingsley and the Majesty. From what little we know about the Majesty, and yes, little is definitely the key word here, it doesn't seem like he had many people around him that he could actually learn from or listen to. He didn't even have a particularly healthy relationship with his wife, so what can we say about ordinary people? That tells us that he probably ruled completely alone. Kingsley, on the other hand, has the Lark. Kingsley is surrounded by people they learn something new from every single day. Even their character descriptions support this. Cole says, allow yourself to start over. Clementine says, allow yourself to learn. Peregrine says, to change, and only then can Kingsley rule over what is rightfully theirs. Without the Lark, Kingsley will become just like the Majesty, a child who refuses to listen to anyone, but with Cole Cole, Clementine and Peregrine by their side. They will have people who can guide them onto the right path when it truly matters. And to add even more to this theory, I don't think it's a coincidence that Kingsley's Harker is the Enkindled. One more thing I noticed, every Lark's Harker fits them in one way or another. Like, for example, what do we know about the Storyteller? Well, you can tell just from the name alone. They tell stories of the past. Meanwhile, Cole, in a way, if we don't count the Origins EP, has always been the one telling stories through songs with their voice, since they are the group's main vocalist alongside Clementine, though even then Cole still pulls the role toward themselves a little more. What I mean is, there's definitely a reason why Enkindled, the Harker, known for their ability to shapeshift, the one who even mimicked the Majesty himself, is specifically connected to Kingsley. Plus, it was the Harkers who chose the Lark, and it was the Harkers who managed to bring the Lark together. We don't know how the other Harkers were involved in the origins of the other Lark members, but we do know for certain that the Storyteller was the reason Cole left the hills, the very first Lark member of the group. And just tell me this, would the Harkers have been babysitting the Lark if there hadn't been some motive behind it? Over so many centuries in the world of Eld, we barely heard anything concrete about the Harkers. The one truly famous time was when they came to the Majesty, and now they've come again, but this time to a bunch of children. I am convinced there's a reason for it. They know how things ended with the Majesty, and if they know that history could repeat itself in the future, then they have to prevent it. Going back to Kingsley, if we put everything together, I actually think the picture starts to come together pretty well. And if by some miracle this theory turns out to be even a little bit true, then I honestly think it will make for a really good and sort of a meaningful story. I mean, I think Kingsley will probably keep their childlike personality even as an adult, but if something truly serious happens and people's lives end up depending on a decision they have to make, they will approach it with care instead of covering their ears like the Majesty did. Again, I think that will make for a really compelling story, and more importantly, one with an actual lesson behind it, which I think is exactly what Keys tries to achieve with their project. But there's one big catch. There's a huge chance that I've completely overthought all of this and this theory isn't true at all. There are obviously plenty of ways to poke holes in it. I mean, to begin with, would Yaelokre really reveal what is essentially a massive plot twist? In the prologue chapter? Sure, they could leave hints toward it, but the main story hasn't even started yet. And honestly, it's not even that difficult to arrive at this conclusion, which ironically makes me believe in it even less. So let's put it this way. At the end of the day, it's just a theory. That's what theories are for. I simply speculated, shared my observations, and maybe gave you a few new ideas to think about. And honestly, while putting this theory together, I had a lot of fun, and I think that's the most important part of theorizing. The theory I believe in much more is still the very first one I talked about at the beginning of the section. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts about all of this. Whether you agree with the theory or not, what observations you have, feel free to write about it all in the comments. I'm really curious. And with that, congratulations on reaching the finale of Foreword, the prologue chapter of Middle Arc story. I tried my best to tell you all the information I currently know, and I'm really happy that you stayed here this whole time and let me ramble about this wonderful and mysterious world of Yaelokre. I might take a break from Yaelokre's lore for a while. After all, there isn't any lore I could talk about right now. But don't rush to unsubscribe if you're here only for Yaelokre. Just know this for sure, the time will come, there will be enough lore again, and I'll gladly come back to tell it all to you. And in the meantime, you can check out the other videos on this channel, or the entire playlist collection of breaking down the world of Yaelokre, if somehow this is your first time here. For me, this project, if I can call it like that, became something bigger than just a project, which honestly still makes me laugh a little. Like, how could a few simple songs sung by 4 children possibly affect someone's life? And yet, jokes aside, it seems like they actually did. Not just mine, but the lives of so many other people in this fandom too. I've seen so many comments from people thanking Yaelokre for this, and honestly, I still don't fully know myself. I wouldn't say they completely turned my life upside down, but I've never felt such a huge wave of creativity and desire to make something artistic before. And what's interesting is that through this, his Osk managed to fulfill the goal of the project itself, because I still remember how creative I was as a child, and unfortunately with every passing year that spark faded more and more. But when I discovered Yaelokre, they managed to bring back that feeling of wonder and remind me what it's like to be a child. And beyond that, honestly, this became especially important during the times we live in now, and personally, Yaelokre became that little bright corner of the internet where, even if only for a moment, I could escape from all the problems, to listen to them sing of fables retold and unsung, about truths to make believe, and to see how through this they managed to foster the very same area that brought them to existence: our ability to wield wonder.